So we had some news that came out in the past hour or so that the Packers have worked out veteran wide receiver Keke Coutee. It came out here from Aaron Wilson saying Packers working out former Texans and Colts wide receiver Keke Coutee, according to a league source. Packers not immediately signing Keke Coutee after a strong workout today per a league source, but could happen in the next few weeks. Team liked his versatility. So one of the biggest questions with now Jordan Love taking over in Green Bay is, do the Packers have enough receiving talent around Jordan Love to make him successful? Because we lost Allen Lazard, we lost Randall Cobb, we lost Robert Tonyan, we've most likely lost Mercedes Lewis as well. And so there's lots of uncertainty at receiver. We have lots of young players, 5 players going into year 2, 5 rookies / undrafted free agents. And I have been wondering, would the Packers bring in some kind of veteran receiver to this room just to be able to allow the guys to have another guy who has more experience than them? Because currently at this point, Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, both draft picks from last year, are the most experienced players in this Packers receiver room, along with Samori Toure, a couple other guys as well. But that's a pretty young group, which the Packers are going to work with. But now with this news, the Packers could potentially be bringing in Keke Coutee, who has been in the NFL for about 4 or 5 years. Just a little bit of background on him. He played for Texas Tech in college for 3 seasons. He then was drafted by the Texans in the 4th round of the 2018 NFL Draft. He's 5'11", 180 pounds, running a 4.43 40. And if we take a look at his career stats here, his best year was back in 2020, where he had 33 receptions for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns with the Houston Texans. But the past 2 seasons, he only has 2 receptions in his 2 years with Indianapolis for 25 receiving yards. So the past couple of years, he has not been productive. It's slightly concerning that he, wasn't able to push his way up in that room in Indianapolis, because I don't think they have one of the best receiver rooms in the NFL. But I think that when you look at any move the Packers are making, it's because if they're working out a guy, they want to see if there's some potential there that they think they can work with. And just the fact that they brought him in means that they see something there that, they could work with in this receiver room. And I think that sometimes it's easy to judge a signing based off, recent history for a player. And lots of times it is somewhat telling. But there are other times, other situations where players were maybe not playing at their best for the past couple seasons. They come into a new situation and really just play at a completely different level. And just if we look at the Packers' history, we saw that with Rasul Douglas being on a practice squad and then coming in and playing as well as he has. We saw it with Devondre Campbell a couple of years ago, only being signed for $2 million in his first contract with the Packers, was that 2 or so years ago, and then playing as one of the best middle linebackers in the NFL. So there is always some hidden talent out there that, their past couple seasons may not look great, but they somehow come in and take their game to another level. And so I think that with Keke Coutee, if the Packers do decide to sign him, I think he will compete for a roster spot. Obviously every player is, but I think that he has a chance to potentially make the Packers roster in the receiver room just because of how young the group is. There is tons of talent, tons of potential in this Packers receiving room, but considering he does have that experience, that does give him a leg up over some of these other guys. And so if the Packers do decide to sign him, we'll see if he has a chance to make the Packers' final 53-man roster, because I do think he would have that opportunity just because of the inexperience and opportunity that there is here in Green Bay when it comes to this receiver room. Another note, which I didn't mention in my newsletter, which I forgot to mention, but I'll mention it here in my video, is that in his 678 career snaps, he did play in the slot 73.2% of the time. So in his career, he has been more of a slot receiver. And if we look at the Packers' current slot receiver, I'd say it's likely going to be Jaden Reed, 2nd-round pick this past season, or this past draft, happened a month or so ago. And so maybe the Packers want to bring in another slot receiver who has a little bit more experience. And I think that could obviously make sense. Other note, he did return 17 punts last year for the Colts for 152 yards. One issue was he did muff 3 punts, according to PFF, which isn't great. So maybe they see him as a potential special teams guy as well as a receiving weapon. And the fact that he has struggled recently, I would assume the Packers would be able to sign him for maybe a league minimum contract. And considering the fact that the Packers are pretty hampered by cap space right now, especially with the $40 million cap hit for Rodgers this season, they don't have a ton of money to make big-time free agent signings. I think around right now we have about $16 million or so salary cap space according to Over the Cap, but that doesn't calculate, the $5 to $10 million depending on how much money the Packers give the new rookies. It doesn't count all of that in practice squad players and all that kind of stuff. So the Packers don't really have much room to work with. So I think that when it comes to bringing in a veteran, this would make more sense than signing a guy like Jarvis Landry just financially, even though Landry, I think, is a guy who would be more productive. The Packers may have to, sign a guy like this where they could get a league minimum and potentially have a chance to see this guy maybe take his game to another level. And hopefully that does happen here with Keke Coutee. So overall, we'll see what happens here. I'll keep you guys updated if the Packers do end up signing him, but that is the most recent news. And if you guys would like to stay up to date with Packers news, all things Packers, I'm a huge Packers fan. I only cover the Packers on this channel, so feel free to subscribe. I also have a Packers newsletter, and if you want to see more over there, you can get more info in the link in the description. You can click it, sign up, and you will receive my newsletter. But that's all I have for this video. I appreciate you guys as always, and I'll see you guys next time.